To Kruger National Park. My name is Mark. Andrew's on camera with me this afternoon, and Tara back in final control. I'm glad you're with us. I'm glad you're going to join us for the afternoon. I hope we're going to have an interesting afternoon. Temperatures changed quite dramatically, so I would imagine that after a really cool and grey overcast morning, it actually got quite chilly towards 9 o'clock. Funny enough, it was warmer at 6 o'clock this morning. There were a few animals about, but they seem to have probably disappeared into shadows and into the shade of some of the drainage lines, and it's out in these open areas that they're going to maybe be emerging once the sun starts going down and the temperatures start dropping. We're centigrade, fairly low humidity, so it's not an exceptionally hot afternoon. It's a very sort of typical late autumn afternoon. I do see some cloud build-up in the west, so there is another one of those western storms that's brewing over the escarpment, and it's going to be probably moving north and maybe covering the sun as we go on later, and it might even prove to be a really pretty sunset again. We're gifted with wonderful sunsets. So let's go and find some things for you. We've got some starlings and hornbills feeding here in the grasses, although there's a hornbill looks like it might be digging in a termite mound. Let's go and have a look at that. Morning, quite often we might find something on our sunrise safari, and we can then go back and visit with that later on in the afternoon. Often on days like this, a lot of the animals pretty much stay put where they are, especially the predators. Elephants, however, are likely to move considerable distances. And so we're going to be looking at all sorts of little things, anything that we can find. Such as, well, there's a pair of red-billed hornbills here. One of them was digging in this termite mound. And a lot of the termites have been very active of late, closing up a lot of their chimneys, a lot of their ventilation holes, because temperatures and climate or the weather and the season is changing, and it's time for them to start conserving a lot of the heat that they produce underground. So they're basically closing their vents. Sometimes the hornbills dig in it because it's fresh clay, freshly deposited mud, easy to get into. Well, these two are just hopping through the grasses trying to catch insects. Recently been cut, which helps with a number of things. Most of all helps with for animals, the grazers. We'll see the wildebeest and zebra will probably be out here later. But the most important thing is that one of the most important things is it prevents fires, and we can't afford to have fires, and it acts as a very good fire break, keeping the grasses very short. It allows for a better succession of plants from season to season, rather than actually burning the dry grasses away, using those dry grasses as basically fertilizer and all the seed that remains behind. We're going to be looking for some tracks. We're going to be looking for some signs like broken branches, not like that one that's in the road, but a broken branch maybe left by elephant. We're going to be looking. Stop and listen. And that also helps, because we can hear sometimes what animals are up to. Sometimes we can hear alarm calls if predators are moving around. Welcome if you're a new viewer, and to tell you that we are live is one thing, but I can tell you also that we can interact with you wherever you are on the planet. It's wonderful to do so. You can send an email. They can come into our final control where Tara is, and she can then radio questions through to me. You can either send that through an email on questions@WildEarthTV, or you can send that along to tweet. #Safari Live to Twitter. Tweet it to Twitter. Tweet it. You know what I mean. That little bluebirdy thing. This is Wahlberg's Nest Road, going down to Twin Dams Road. Maybe we'll go down to Twin Dams. There was a herd of elephant we saw, and so maybe, well, it was yesterday, but maybe we can see if they're still around somewhere. Not too much later, but what I would like to do is talk about something a lot of the viewers, the long-term viewers, the viewers who've been with us for quite some time now, for the last few months, will know about, and a lot have also been asking about it, which is a skull of a wildebeest. And this morning, if you were lucky enough to join us on our drive this morning, although we didn't see very much, we saw some good birds. The most fantastic thing we saw of all, which is actually one of the highlights even for a Wild Earth first, was the secretary bird. And I think of all of you long-term viewers have been watching over the many years. And I showed you some features of that skull. And I'm going to show you this really strange anomaly on this particular wildebeest. And I'm also maybe going to maybe we can have Scott and Brent comment on it as well, see what their thoughts are. And Steph, if he's going to be here for a fireside chat. Good news, another two people who can comment. Good news is that Peter and Hayden will be back to do some drives. And they're going to spice it up a little bit. They're going to give you their take on this wonderful patch of the Greater Kruger National Park. Part of the Kruger National Park known as the Sabi Sands. And this particular property in the Sabi Sand is known as Djuma Game Reserve commercially, but it's also got a name of the property itself, and the property is called Western Gowrie. Much like a property north of us is called Buffels Hook, to the east of us is a property called Torch. There's Little Gowrie and Hoffman's, and then mostly to the west is Arathusa, which is where we'll be able to drive around on the odd occasion. We'll be able to go and visit some of the resident cats that live on Arathusa, as well as whatever other animals may occur there. There are a lot of animals that to them it's just all home. Issue going through this dip, just in case your feed starts wobbling, getting that little thing that sometimes happens on the news for an outside broadcast, or so. Excuse me if we lose you. Big thank you. So hopefully we're back. Big thank you to all of the viewers that are responding to the blog and to the news that Peter and Hayden are coming back. A lot of you are very excited about it. I'm sure you are. It's really a great thing to have them back again. And I'm sure we'll be fine. The other thing, of course, is that been toying with this wonderful new rig that allows Scott to carry the camera out there and film a butterfly, a very special butterfly at the water, just there on the mud. It's called mud. Seeing how that's going to work, it's going to be a fantastic opportunity to take a camera where we can't take a vehicle and get a perspective of what it's like to be out on foot. So, has my butterfly left? No, it's there, and we can almost see the inside of its wings. A very special butterfly. And I need my butterfly book. I hope it opens its wings a bit more. I think it's a Caraxes, but it might be one of the butterflies that's very similar to the Caraxes. They pick up a lot of moisture, but also a lot of minerals from the mud and the clay. They don't drink the water directly. There were a couple of other butterflies here that I wanted to look at. Could be the African leaf. Or it could be the soldier pansy. Hot there. Just open the wings a little bit and see if it's got that false eye in the middle of the wing. The part of the forewing. Using the sun, bouncing the sun off of its wings onto its body, almost like solar panels.
He's gone.
Gone. Oh, we can hear the thunder from that storm in the west. I'm going to have to look for it later. I don't want to waste too much time trying to find it now. It was quite a large and very fast flying butterfly. Looks like there might be some more weather coming in from the south. There's another front coming in, but that storm that's brewing is going to be rumbling with thunder most of the afternoon, and soon, fortunately, because it's getting quite hot. We're going to probably be able to see the rain. It's going to come so close. But it'll cool it down. It's going to cover the sun pretty soon. A lot of flies today. Lots of flies. see bicycle tracks. Must be from the anti-poaching patrol that came through here today. They ride around on bicycles. Afternoon or drives, at the moment it drive radio might not be on because of the repeater. And I don't know if there's been a power failure or something, but it might just change things in that we're on our own. If there's no radio, we don't know if anybody else finds anything, but that's fine, because what we do is we find our own animal. We're on Twin Dams Road, by the way. We're going to stop in at Twin Dams. Being a hot afternoon, might be something around the water. Usually the likes of buffalo at the dams in the afternoons, wallowing, doing what buffalo do best. Spur. Home of the pirates. Wanting to know if animals grey when they get older. Some of them do, although it's more, there's a lot of hair loss. And there, yes, and if we look at old giraffe, they get very, very pale around the head. Buffalo, not so much. Lion, not so much. Leopard to some degree. There are changes, there's certainly changes, and it certainly shows in the hair and the well, I suppose their whole demeanor really. Buffalo, muddy buffalo. That's what buffalo love to do. And I think if I was a buffalo, I'd pretty much do the same thing. Covering yourself in mud is sure protection against these incessant flies. And I worry about the few flies that I have around me, and it's nothing compared to the swarms of flies. In fact, there are probably a greater number of different species of flies that you will find on buffalo. And there's only just there's one type of fly that's bugging me. We don't really want to disturb them too much, so we're going to just sit here in the shade and observe. Maybe there'll be some birds, maybe we'll hear some thunder, maybe we'll hear some other noises. It might be nice to just sit here in the shade for a bit, have a look at this group of bugger boys. Or African buffalo. Water buffalo are from Asia. There are a couple of them on the other side, those big dry bulls, especially the one at the back. He is head to toe covered in clay. So are the two that are lying in the mud. Rolling in the water behind the tree. I think he's just making his way to the other bulls. I heard a francolin alarming, not extensively, not really frantically. Now these are old bulls that don't necessarily join up with them at some point, but for the time being, while it's hot and there's grazing to be had and there's mud to lie in, why bother going on this long trek that the big herds do? There's these big herds of families and the breeding herds of buffalo, the cows and the calves and the bulls, they cover such huge areas, and these old bulls tend to get a little bit lazy. And they, well, lazy is not really the word. Hey, what do you call it? What do you call a buffalo that uses his horn as a pillow and lies in the mud all day? Energy conscious. No, that's for cats. Cats are energy conscious. Buffalo are merely practical. They are just practical. Because they can find enough grazing, they can lie around and chew the cud, or they can just sleep in the sun covered in mud. So often we see flat cats. Here you have a flat buffalo. That's about as flat as a buffalo gets. Short of being a carcass. Because there are a lot of lion here that love to eat these buffaloes, big as they are. And I'd say one of the biggest bulls here is, no, that one on your left, far, that one on the left now. He looks to me, no, that single one there in the middle of the screen, he looks to me like he's one of the biggest bulls of all. There's another big bull walking in the water on the other side, but I don't know how big the two are that are sleeping in the mud. They're one in the middle now, fourth from left, third from right. Well, there's also the fourth from the right, but third in picture, that one. You see how deep the neck is compared to the bull on his left? The shoulders, the neck, everything about him is just, that's just all muscle. He's massive. Absconded from the herd. Groups of old bulls. It's like an old boys club. Some of them that have probably grown up together even. And you hear that thunder?
Negative.
Isn't it? It's a little bit distant. It's not, but this storm is coming a lot closer than it was, and I'm looking at this first quarter moon in the sky. It's just, we've gone from waxing crescent to now waxing gibbous. We've just been through first quarter, and it's giving me a landmark, as it were, or a sky mark, for want of a better word. The fact that I'm able to gauge where the cloud is based on where it is in relation to the moon. Gosh, Marisha was asking about a tree that's had the bark taken off, wanting to know if it's from the buffalo or from the antelope.
Maybe this one.
Where the reddish is.
Yeah.
That little spot.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's hard to tell. But the other thing that can also take bark off is porcupines, but then it also depends on how high it is off of the ground, because porcupines chew the bark of certain trees. And so there are three possibilities for something that might have taken bark off. Wildebeest too. Wildebeest also rub their horns on bark. Although impala do rub their horns on bushes, and so do kudu. It's more on the bushes, on the branches. To a bit of a swaddle or poking him in the stomach. It could be quite dangerous, putting a horn on that side. And this is all friendly. This is all locking horns a little bit. Probably even related individuals, although the one was bigger than the other. It's not a very big bull, the one walking off to the right. That seems to be a medium-aged buffalo. And
looks like he's causing trouble with
yeah, it looks like he's just trying to incite violence. Let me roll forward, try and get forward a little bit so we can see what he's going to do to that other big bull. Okay, we're going to do something very special now. We're going to be crossing over to Scott and Stefan, and I hope we're going to have some wonderful stuff from them. We're going to see something new which has been done before on Wild Earth, but it has been a long time since we've been able to do it, and our technical guys, Peter and Alex and Eugene, and with the input of all of us, have been very hard at work putting this equipment together. So I want to hand you over to Steph, and we're going to sit here with these buffalo for a while, just a little while. I want to listen out, and then I'm going to start making my way to somewhere else. That will be a surprise when you get back.
Welcome to the Sunset Bushwalk here at Djuma Private Game Reserve. It's a special edition, or a new addition to the product. And I'd like to introduce myself. It's Stefan, and there's Scott on the camera behind us. And what we're basically going to be doing is taking you on a walk with us through Djuma this afternoon. And it's a very special thing to be on a walk. We are far away from a lodge, we are far away from a vehicle, we're in the bush. And how amazing is it that you get to join us for this special occasion? So we're just astounded at this whole production, to be quite honest with you. And the ability for you sitting where you are, standing where you are, to come on this walk with us. Now, walking is a way for you to interact with the bush that's very difficult to do from a vehicle. In a vehicle, it's slightly noisy, you're missing the subtleties around the bush, you're missing the smaller, more finer detailed things. And that's what we hope to bring you with this, is we're hoping to introduce you to our neighborhood. This is where we live, this is where we stay. And there's so many tiny things that we miss while we're going from sighting to sighting, or driving around the reserve trying to show you There are certain things that we need to take into consideration. One is that animals behave quite differently towards us on foot than they do when we're in a vehicle. Their comfort zones for a good description are a lot broader with you on foot. People have been disturbing animals on foot before there were private game reserves. When man was still part of the food chain, people have been disturbing animals on foot for thousands upon thousands of years. The nice thing is for the last 60 years or so, we've been able to interact with these animals on foot without them really being a danger or being in competition with them for space or for food or anything like that. And it's because of this 60 years of history that we have with these animals in this particular area on foot, we haven't been in competition with them, that we can now do this relatively safely. There are some things that we do, though. I do have a rifle with me, as you'd notice. This is a new addition to us walking around. Now, basically what that is just, and it's policy in this area to have, but it's also just a sort of essential piece of safety equipment, very similar to a belt would be, or an airbag in your car. You know, the hope is that you never have to use it, but you know, you're lucky the day that it's there and you do. But what we're going to do now is we're going to get off of this fantastic termite mound that we're sitting on at the moment. Scott and I have just heard impala bark off to my left behind me at the moment. We've got wind in our face, which is I test this by using what we've affectionately come to call our Scott sock. It's one of Scott's socks that are filled with ash from the fire, as you can see. And a gentle shake releases some ash, and you can see that it gives me a very clear indication of where the wind is blowing at the moment. So the wind is blowing around the termite mound. It's actually blowing from this side. We're hoping to show you what it is this afternoon. Now, while we're walking, you're welcome to send us some questions. Scott and I are attached to Final Control and Nikki and Tara through a radio. And you can use an email, questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag on Twitter, Safari Live. And we will be forwarded the questions, and hopefully we can answer some of them as we walk along and see what's in front of us. So without further ado, please come with. You'll know it, and coming out of the Terminalia thicket, onto the crest of the hill, and it should be a bit more grassy and a bit more open, and it's there that I'm expecting these impala to be. What's quite interesting is we've got a storm rolling around us, and should you hear any rumbles in the distance, it's thunder that we're hearing, so definitely not giving us too much of a warning right now, but something to keep our eye open. You'll see in the distance a big termite mound. Now we're going to be aiming to go to that termite mound. I just want to go and stand on it, and it gives me a bit of elevation. It also from where I'm standing at the moment, I actually can't hear the impala alarm calling anymore. It's not uncommon. They alarm call very briefly, they all run away, they stop what they're doing, and they look around and they've run away from the danger and they stop alarm calling. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't still keep on looking for what's disturbed them. So. So while I'm busy listening with the one ear, this is quite interesting. This is a piece of round leaf bloodwood that an elephant has had in his mouth, and basically what he's done is he's chewed the bark off. The only piece of this entire branch that the elephant was interested in was the bark, and you can see what he's done. He's put it in his mouth on one side and he's rolled it between his molars, and it came out the other side of his mouth. Basically what I'm doing with my hands now is rolling it. He's chewed off the bark, and then he spat out the rest, leaves, roots on the other end and all. And they spend hours busy eating these round leaf bloodwoods, and they actually coppice. They should grow into a small tree and a shrub, but they don't. They never get higher than a little bush in this area. Elephants just chop them, keep on chopping them, don't kill the plant, they become towards where we heard them calling. Let's see what we can do. Come along. From a African perspective, what people want to see, they got their reputation for being the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt on foot, and therefore the most spectacular to see, from a photographic point of view, that is. So of those animals, we can expect any of them to be potentially life-threatening, but very similar to how you live your daily life, where you try and avoid and minimize threats to your person, we try and do the same here. We're keeping our eyes and ears open. We're moving and stopping and listening, and moving and stopping and listening. We're trying to avoid very thick bush areas. We're keeping the wind into our faces. And therefore, we're minimizing the chance that we spook one of these animals. That's what you don't want to do. So, while I'm not worried about what we're going to expect here, I expect that we're going to find, or maybe not find, something that scared the impala. It could be lions, it could be leopard, it could be anything really. We could walk into a herd of buffalo in front of us, and elephant herd. It doesn't really matter what we do. We're going to read the situation as it comes, and not try and panic. That's the key. We are as much part of this bush as what they are. Especially ourselves, myself and Scott have both been working in this environment for a long time. Myself 16 years plus, and Scott approaching 10 years at the moment. So definitely got some experience. You're in safe hands. Go right ahead. So Ginny, hello Ginny from Virginia. I've just been asked by you, do we use established paths when you're walking through the bush, or do we just pick a direction to walk in? We definitely don't use established paths. I would say it's a mixture. At the moment we're not walking on an established path at all. Scott and I were waiting to do the introduce you to our walk, and next thing behind us, impala started alarm calling, and we literally just walking in that direction, walking through the bush. I will try and walk on paths sometimes. It's a lot quieter to walk on a path. There's a lot less twigs and leaves, but it's not necessarily what we try and aim for. If it's there, I'll walk on it. If it's not there, it's not too much of a problem. Hopefully that answered your question. We're getting close to where we heard those impala barking at the moment. We're no more than, say, 400 yards, 200 meters away, and we're going to carry on in that direction. Haven't heard anything from them again, but so now we've reached the crest of this little hill that we've been walking up, and it's from here that we can start to expect to see these impala. Now, some of you might be noticing that I have a white armband on my arm. This is just a visual cue that I am a registered trails guide walking in this area. There are surveillance teams and anti-poaching squads that are deployed throughout the Kruger National Park in an effort to combat poaching. And this is just one of the cues that I have at the moment to distinguish myself from someone who's unregistered. So just it's not to make my muscle look big. And I must say, I have to say, and a big thank you to Donna on Twitter for asking that question. It slipped my mind initially, so thank you, Donna. So I've got a funny feeling that those impala were calling in this direction here. I'm hearing slight noises coming from here, and it's in that direction that I want to go in. So let's go. The bush is a bit thick at sort of grass level, but Not too much of a worry. It's not thick enough to make us worry too much that there's going to be anything hiding at close quarters. So the bush we're walking through at the moment is typically impala habitat. We're just going to take a minute or two just to listen once more. I can hear a tree squirrel. Let's go and find it. Copy that. We're busy calling not too far away from us now. It's a chittering noise. We're going to be making our way straight to that. That's a clear indication that something's disturbed that tree squirrel. They shout for almost anything, but with the impala barking and now the tree squirrel's busy calling. Okay. So we've got a troop of mongoose that's just run out of the grass in front of me. I don't think it's that's scaring the tree squirrel. Let's carry on going. So the tree squirrel has stopped calling, but let's get a bit closer. We're right here. Ah, I now know what scared the tree squirrels. As you can see from the top of the tree, we have an African harrier hawk. So I would say that would be enough to scare the squirrels into making the alarm call. Why we were rushing here was the combination of impala and the combination of the tree squirrels calling was enough to make me certain that there was some other type of predator here. Now the African harrier hawk give the alarm call, definitely the squirrel, or we think it's definitely the squirrel. But we're going to carry on here, look around this area. Fairly certain whatever disturbed those impalas is definitely around here still. It looks like we're on the edge of a beautiful open area. Now, Lynn in Toronto, hello Lynn, good afternoon, wanted to know if we keep within a certain distance from the camp, or if we have particular paths that we walk on. So thank you for your question, Lynn. The answer to that is we're not restricted very much at all, to be honest with you. We can pretty much walk where we want to on Djuma, and this is one of the special things of bringing you the walking safaris live like we are at the moment, is that Scott and I pretty much have unrestricted access to this whole reserve, all the blocks in between the roads, all the drainage lines, and it's what's making it so exciting bringing this to you, so we can access areas that would be very difficult to reach in the car. So what we're going to do is we're going to just scout through this open area, keeping our eyes and our ears open, once again, just those telltale signs like we've had. And we'll definitely keep you updated as we go along. So as this area is busy opening up and giving us some distance to see through, giving Scott and I some chance to have a look through here, but also considering the time frame that's gone by since we heard the impala giving the alarm call and when we arrived at this open area, we're going to be crossing back to Mark, but we'll definitely keep you updated as we go along with what's going on around us.
Well, welcome back to our wheeled drive, and welcome back to this part of Djuma Game Reserve, and in a very, very special spot because we're on the western slope of one of our eastern most hillsides, and we're able to look out over this fantastic sky that is brewing over the north and the west, or the northwest going into the southwest, and just about reaching the sun now, the front of, or the beginning of this front, stretching to the horizon, stretching to the escarpment of the Drakensberg Mountains in the west, and some dark cloud coming up from the south. I haven't heard any more thunder. Most of the storm is very far away. It's not likely to be coming here, but the tail end of this might swing around, and the southwest and the west stretching set is going to be great news from all of you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm getting a lot of tweets and emails from our viewers about to cross over to Steph on foot from time to time, much as we do to another vehicle. Well, I'll carry on. We're going to move along, keep on driving. We're up on Drakensberg Drive. We're going to go up onto Cheetah Cutline. And one thing, I had a question just recently about what animals take bark off of trees, and we couldn't really see which bark or which tree we were talking about because the camera might have moved. But I think what I'm going to do is to follow up on that question is I'm going to find you some trees that have had their bark removed, and we're going to see if I can identify for you what animals have done so. In the meantime, though, let's just continue, and I can tell you a little bit about what's coming up in about just under 2 weeks' time. And one of the reasons why Peter and Hayden are coming back is because we're going to be joining up with Nat Geo Wild again for their Big Cat Week and broadcasting live with them. And Peter and Hayden are going to be the two presenters for that. Peter is a long-time presenter for Wild Earth. Peter was one of the pioneers of the live drives. He was one of the ones that was here when there was a little old vehicle called the Tank, a little old Land Rover called Bubbaloo, and another one called the Tank. And it was like a refreshing picture, and I don't think they could get much further than Quarantine. That was probably a good 10, 11 years ago, or maybe, I'm not sure, maybe it was 2007 when they started live drives and perfecting it from there now. So Peter will be back with his experience of live drives, and Hayden Turner, that's Peter Pretorius by the way, Hayden Turner will be coming in. Hayden is a very experienced and very well known TV presenter for Nat Geo and Nat Geo Wild. He's done a lot of work all over the world. He originates from Australia and currently lives in the UK with his family, and he will be here as well. Fantastic knowledge from his experiences all over the world with wildlife. New or slightly different feel to the way we present our live broadcast from Djuma here in South Africa. Technology is changing all the time, and with changing technology it gives us the opportunities to modify our equipment and to refine the broadcast and get better and better on a technical side. But by the same token, we do have to keep up with the functioning side of it, which is presenting the wildlife to you and being able to do so in such a way that makes it so worthwhile as a viewer, because it's or we could have elephants. I'm thinking I'm going to go to the south quickly and then come back, just because I don't want to miss out on what might have crossed. This is our eastern boundary. This is known as Cheetah Cutline, by the way. A cutline is a road that divides two landowners, although it makes no difference to the animals. The animals can still cover different patches of ground, well, can cover all the areas, but we're not allowed to really cross over. Old leopard tracks here. That must be Mvula. Very big leopard, but it's very old. You see that? I can't really see that with the camera though. No. I'll have to find leopard tracks. Clearer ones. Oops. Our eastern boundary, I want to go down to the southern corner on our eastern boundary and might see what might have crossed the road coming in or out of Djuma. Number of people, including Kathleen and Sandy, both tweeting, want to know what's on my dashboard. It's one of my usual show and tell things. But there's something in this resin bush that I can see. What's on my dashboard? I'm going to get to that at some point. I'm glad you noticed. I hope James is with us. This is interesting. Before I get to the toy on my dashboard, I want to show you something else. This is a fantastic little purse. Almost looks like an oyster. Perfect, almost perfectly round. It's made out of silk. It is not a cocoon. This is not something pupated like a caterpillar into a butterfly or a moth. This is an egg case. It is an egg case of a very special spider known as the garden orb, not the golden orb, but a spider known as the garden orb, which is also known as the argiope, A-R-G-I-O-P-E. And it's the egg case that she lays. Sadly, she must have, and it must have been quite a while ago. The snakeskin, by the way, it looks like it was an egg eater, common egg eater, because of the patterning on it, but it's very old, and I can't be 100% sure, but it's quite old and faded. But this would have hatched at the beginning of summer, and the silk persists for a long time because it's very, very powerful. This is I don't think I'd be able to tear this up. This is a seam where the spiderlings have come out of it. But the actual plate of it, the actual oyster shape of it, is very, very strong silk produced by the spider. And I might be able to find a garden orb spider for you. They're a little bit different. They're almost the same size as the golden orbs. They're a lot flatter than the golden orbs, mostly yellow and black or silvery and black. And they spin a very distinctive pattern in their web, a very distinctive zigzag pattern that is called a stabilimentum, that helps to in the web, but it serves as a visual to this little crest, because I want to see if there are any animals on the open area, and then I can show a closer view of it. They dig burrows, very large burrows for the size of the insect that they are, and they live in pairs in the burrow. Come out at night and pretty much eat anything that moves. Being a beetle, they've got a very hard exoskeleton. Oh, there's a baby slender mongoose in this spot. I was hoping maybe some zebra or something on this open area, but it seems the animals. It's Monday. Oh, it's a public holiday. That's why. Isn't it Freedom Day or something?
Yes.
That's why they're not animals.
That makes sense.
27th of April in South Africa is a public holiday. Although there's a squirrel coming towards us in the road, standing up. No, it's gone into the bush. Sorry, no squirrel. Another squirrel in the marula tree. Oh, you got it. Oh. So back to my beetle, which is, I hope you can get a nice tight shot of it.
I think so.
You can see those mandibles, pretty huge mandibles. To turn it slightly, you can get a better view. Now, being one of the ground-dwelling beetles, it no longer has wings. It's no longer a flighted insect, and having no need for flight. The one feature of a beetle that makes a beetle are the very, very hard upper wings of the abdomen, or over the abdomen rather. They come from the jaws, mostly used for fighting, and I've seen two of them. In fact, I've got a little film clip somewhere of two of them fighting. I've got these that live at home, and I know where their burrows are on, so quite often in the summer months I actually sit outside their burrows and I wait for them to come out and watch them at night. They're amazing because they're very fast. Being tiger beetles, they are, as I said, voracious predators, but they're also possibly used as claspers, those big mandibles used to help hold down the female during mating, because they're very active. And a lot of these beetles, well, they're cousins actually. They're cousins. Some of the ground beetles actually can spray acids. This is a tiger beetle, it doesn't need to.
Like a two-spotter beetle.
Yes, that would be one that's one of the beetles that is able to spray acid, and then it's very accurate. They can spray it in the eye. While I've got one of the ground beetles out, I want to show you another beetle. It's nowhere near related to this beetle. It's a vegetarian beetle, but it's also very interesting, and it's related only in that it too has developed a terrestrial existence, and so it has also got fused elytra over the back. It no longer has. You can actually still see the line where the two elytra usually would meet, where they would be able to open up their upper wings and unfold those very delicate flight wings to fly away. This is known as a tok-toki beetle, and it's a Morse code beetle. It's a beetle that has a very, very specially adapted underpart to the abdomen. This is a very, very hardened tip to the underpart of the abdomen, and it uses that to tap on rocks or hard ground, or sometimes they'll even find resonance on a dry piece of wood or a dry leaf, and he will tap and use Morse code using this underside of his abdomen. He's covered in dust because this is probably a lot of mud and dust that has accumulated over this beetle's lifetime, covered his legs as well, and also from a lot of tapping, developing a lot of dust over the back of it. But there you go, two very interesting beetles that are they're only related to each other in that they are beetles. They are not bugs because they're beetles, and they are also related to things like the chafer beetles and the dung beetles, but they are all different families of beetles. Just thought I'd show you that, because I thought maybe we'd be battling, because I don't know where the animals are today. Sometimes we get lucky, and sometimes we've got to work hard for our sightings. question from the Midwest. Hello, Kelly in Minnesota. Nice to hear from you. Thank you for your question. How old are buffalo when they leave the herd, join the bachelor herd? I don't know, Kelly. No, there's sometimes they're young and sometimes, generally they're the older bulls. Generally they don't really leave the breeding herd. Generally, most young buffalo bulls will stay with the herd and become breeding individuals within the herd eventually. But sometimes you might find the young buffalo with these bachelor boys. These bachelor boys are more sort of the senile old bulls that are no longer breeding. They're kind of the retirees. They just want to sit in their rocker on the porch and smoke a cigarette all day, or just lie in the mud and wallow all day. Or like kudu bulls when they get into a herd and they find a 3-4-year-old kudu and they'll push him out, or zebra. Any of the other really male-dominated herd societies are somewhat different. Buffalo don't have that one male-dominant. And generally the bulls tend to stay with those herds for quite some time. And when they eventually get to a point where they don't want to follow the herds, you see, the herds have to cover vast areas to find fresh, first of all, find fresh grazing, but also to escape lions. Because wherever they go, they've got to move through lion territories, and they're invariably going to lose an individual to the lions at some point. But if they stay within an area, they're not only going to be battling for grazing, but they're also going to be just targets for lions. And once they move between lion territories, they're offered a little bit of freedom from the lions, because either they've moved out of lion's territory and they're no longer a threat from that pride, or the new pride doesn't know that they're there yet, or they new pride. And there are prides of lion that just don't hunt buffalo. And so being on the move constantly becomes a bit of a tedious thing for some of the older bulls, and occasionally, and I think it's also because sometimes they get left behind. Even we've had cows and calves, sometimes you'll get other individuals that will stay in an area because there are old bull buffaloes there, and they have the safety of them until perhaps another herd moves through, and then they can join up with another herd. Butterfly that we had earlier, by the way, is one of the pansies. We see a lot of yellow blue pansies, the Junonia family, or the Junonia genus. The one that we saw, the Junonia. Here in California, the ground-dwelling beetles have a protective layer over their eyes. I'll tell you in a second, Sarah. Yes, they would appear to, almost like a dome, because I'm looking at what should be the compound eye, and I'm using my binoculars, as you can see, and normally you'd look through binoculars this way, but it's quite amazing. It's something I discovered at a very young age, that if you turn them around when you hold the subject close enough and give it enough light, they make an incredible magnifier. And I'm seeing what appears to be a covering over the eye. That was the tiger beetle. I'll tell you something now about the toktoki, which has got a much smaller eye. Of course, the other thing is that beetle, the tiger beetle, being a predator, needs eyesight more than a vegetarian beetle. And this beetle does not have a protective covering over its eye. I can very clearly see the Okay, I'll try and, no, you see it's way too far away to see detail of the eye. Oh, I've got hundreds of flies all over me. We're going to need to drive a little bit just to get away from them. Yo. Does have in its upper branches is able to feed its leaves. Marula tree, and we're going to see there's a knobthorn further on. Elephants using the bark not only for dietary and why they use it, but they must have a whole pharmacy out. Also, elephant has barked this knobthorn, taking the bark for whatever it needs it for. A few patches of bark still remaining, still able to send some nutrients up to the crown of the tree, but it is doomed. With no bark, there's no protection. Wood boring larvae are going to get into that, as well as fungi, and it's likely to fall down eventually. Hello, Liz. This is one of them, Liz. This is, and there's leopard dung in the road. There are leopard tracks here. But old leopard tracks. By the way, that is from sometime this morning, some leopard dung. But yes, Liz, this is a what we call toktoki. Now, tok is knock knock, so it's a knock knock beetle basically, I guess we could call it. Run off, being followed by a hornbill and a drongo. From sometimes I guess the mongoose get a bit clumsy and lose insects. When they're digging, sometimes they don't see the insect that they disturb. Sounds like Steph has found something. I'm not sure if we're cutting to him or I'm just mentioning it, but interesting something. And we're a little far away, but I'm going to start making my way to where Steph is. It sounds pretty exciting actually, and I'm interested to see it from another point of view because I think I was in that area this morning and I hope I didn't miss it. On Buffelshoek and Katlaan Junction. Johan, come in, sorry I was on the other radio. Johan, come in, come on. Okay, copied. Are you north or south of Buffelshoek boundary? Okay, copied. And how many vehicles have we got there? Okay, copied. I'm coming up to Buffelshoek Katlaan there because I have both radios going. But Steph was relaying a message. Sorry. Getting a message about leopard on a kill on Buffelshoek Katlaan near Bubu Road. Now it is just north of the boundary, it is in Buffelshoek, but evidently it is visible from Buffelshoek Katlaan, so we're going to make our way over there to see if we can see that. And it just coincides, funnily enough, with a question about leopards, and I think it was Laura that was asking, I'm not sure, about if there are two siblings If a leopard has two siblings, would they leave their mother at the same time, or would one gender leave before the other? I really don't know. I could not answer that, because I would believe that every time that happens, it might get a different result. It's not something that I think is set in stone. I don't think it's something that we would have to study several leopard offspring, and then it would be very difficult to answer that. It's impossible to answer it, because the leopard, they grow up in different areas that have different densities of leopard, that have different criteria affecting when and how they leave their mother's territory. So it's the population of leopards, it's availability of prey, it's also individual characters that are involved. So I don't believe that there is, unless there's been a specific study done, and even then it would be hard to draw any conclusions or to make any assumptions, because what happens with one litter is not going to happen with another, and the criteria are going to be so different that you can't really compare the two. So I love the question. I love the question from a point of view of that is an interesting concept to look at for the rest of my life, even. Every time I get to know leopards and get to find out excuse me. Coming? Okay, whereabout are you? Oh, okay, copy. James, how are you this morning? Your morning, I guess. James wants to know if there are any trees or plants we can use as insect repellent. There are some. Nothing that would work on these flies. There's absolutely nothing. I will not put DEET on my body, so I will not use a normal commercial insect repellent, but even if I did, it wouldn't work. Citronella would work for a minute. There is wild sage, there's wild basil, there is wild lavender, there is, I must find it for you, there's a flower, I found a new flower today. Well, it's not new to me, but it's new to us, finding different flowers. It's a plectranthus, and the plectranthus is also quite aromatic. It's possible that the plectranthus can be used as well. Things that work against biting flies, biting insects. We don't get the neem tree here, but you can get neem oil. There are a number of things that can be used, but I think, James, if you're thinking about helping me with this fly issue, there's nothing that can be done, really. It is what it is. There's just a lot of flies. Maybe it's got something to do with the fact that there's rain in the air, this time of the year is getting dry. I think it's also got a lot to do with having a lot of buffalo around. We don't have the dung beetles that usually are out with the buffalo because we've had some dry conditions. So there's not as many dung beetles as there should have been this summer. That makes a difference.